Hey guys, welcome to the AFL Round 2 betting trend report. In this video, I'm going to go through the early lines, odds, my early thoughts, and what the betting trends have been before all 8 games this week. Missing one game due to Carlton and Brisbane Lions both having their bye. I think that bye for the Lions comes at a good time, considering how they've performed through the first 2 weeks. And also after the bye, they have the grand final rematch against Collingwood. Firstly, before we jump into the games coming up this week, I just want to do a quick recap of how the season's kind of going so far and give you some interesting betting insights. So in round number 1, not including the opening round games, so just 9 games from last week, 5 of the 9 games went over the total points line, so slight lean to the over. The average total line for those games was 169.9. Home team won 8 of the 9 games. Collingwood was the only loss, which now makes it 11 of the 13 home teams have won the game so far, which you can see the record here. Home teams 11-2. Only the Brisbane Lions, who lost by a point to Carlton, and Collingwood losing to the Swans were the 2 losses. Also, favourites have won 10 of the 13 games so far, and home favourites have won 10 of 12. Fremantle beating the Brisbane Lions. Fremantle were the first home underdog of the season, and they were also able to go on and win that game outright. And also, of the 13 games so far, 11 of them have been decided by the 1-39 margin. So fairly close matchups so far this season. Now, looking at the games coming up this weekend, and also make sure that you subscribe and turn on notifications, because later this week I'm going to be posting my official bets for all of these games. But right now I want to provide you with the information so you can be already thinking and making your betting decisions, not leaving it to the last minute, which a lot of people do, and then they don't make the best decisions. And also, this week I'm going to be talking about, going to post some more videos relating directly to player props and some betting trends specifically for those. So if you ever bet on disposal markets or goal scorer markets or fantasy markets, you're definitely going to want to see those videos. So Thursday night, St Kilda take on Collingwood. There's quite a few games this week where these sides only meet once per season. This is the first one of those. Collingwood are 8.5-point favorites, and the total is 163.5. Last time they met, was it Adelaide Oval and Gather Round last season, where Collingwood were a 10.5-point favorite. When they last met at Marvel, St Kilda were a 7.5-point favorite. So I think that line, even though it was round 1, 2022, it's quite a long time ago now. But I think that line has moved a little bit too far, all the way to now Collingwood minus 8.5. I definitely give St Kilda a good chance of winning this game. I'm not confident they can do it, but at the odds and at the current line, I'd slightly lean towards the Saints plus 8.5. However, they have struggled against Collingwood. Of the past 15, Collingwood have won 12 of them. That's dating back to the 2010 grand final. Remember, the first game was a draw, and then Collingwood came out in the rematch and won very, very easily. The total at 163.5. So there's a few interesting trends that stood out here for the total. Of their last games, the past 4 games were played at night, which one this one is going to be, have gone over the total. The average line for those is 166, and average points scored has been 190. And the day matches were the ones going under the total. So I'd be leaning towards the overs at 163.5. So Saints at the plus and over 163.5 is the way I'm leaning early on the spreads and totals for that game. Adelaide take on Geelong. Adelaide, a 12.5-point favorite. Last time they met, Geelong were a 28.5-point favorite. Prior to that, a 41.5-point favorite. However, both those games were at GMHBA. Now they're at Adelaide Oval, which they haven't met here since 2021, round 1. So long, long time. Adelaide were 28.5-point underdogs for that game. So it's gone from 28.5 points plus all the way to negative 12.5. So almost a 7-goal swing. So that's really, like a really big swing around in the odds between these sides. And it's not like Geelong did anything wrong in their opening game, winning comfortably. And the Crows kind of struggled against the Gold Coast Suns in losing that game. But I would lean slightly to the Crows winning this game, but I don't think they're quite good enough to be a 12.5-point favorite. Looking at the total is at 171.5. Last time they met, it was 166.5. So it's 5 points higher. 6 of the past 8 head-to-head have gone over the total. So slight lean towards the overs there, but I prefer to see the number come down slightly, but I'm definitely leaning towards the overs in this matchup. Also, Geelong have won 11 of the past 14 versus the Crows. However, the home team has won 17 of the past 21. So they have had quite a few games when you go back through the records played in Geelong, not played in Adelaide. So makes it a little bit tricky for this matchup. So from a win-loss perspective, slight lean towards Adelaide, but prefer the total. But I'd definitely like it a couple of points lower. North Melbourne take on Fremantle. Fremantle 14.5-point favorites. Last time they met, they're a 34.5-point favorite. Last time they met, though, in Melbourne, you have to go back a long, long time. So I don't like going back too far. Like you can see, we're already looking at 2019 here. Any further than that, like teams have changed so dramatically during that time. So we don't have a point of reference of these sides playing in Melbourne to compare to in fairly recent history. But I would be leaning towards Fremantle to win this game. I think they should be too good. If they hold form on the road as they played against the Lions in Perth last week, they'd win this game very, very comfortably. Question mark is just whether they can do that. They do have a good record against Kangaroos, winning 6 of the past 8. Also, 6 of the past 8 have gone under the total. So at 170.5, I think this is too high. Last time they met in Perth, it was 158.5. And the biggest total in the past 4 has been 160.5. This one here played in those shorting games in the 2020 season. But we're getting a fairly high total for two teams that, aren't really known for their scoring. So lean towards the under 170.5 in that game and Freo to win. Hawthorn take on Melbourne. Melbourne are 23.5-point favorites, which has come down slightly since their last meeting at 29.5. Obviously, these sides always meet at the MCG, so I am surprised that number has come down to down 6 points from their last meeting. Hawthorn have covered 3 of the past 4, though, against Melbourne and been pretty big underdogs in most of those games. Received $4.50 last time, $8, $5.60, $9 in the past 4 meetings. So at $3.85 here, this is pretty much the closest they've been in the odds since 2021 round 5. The away team has covered the past 6, which is interesting because obviously this is both their home ground. So the team listed as the away team has been covering. And Melbourne do have a good record against Hawthorn, winning 7 of the past 8. And the other matchup ended in a draw, which was the round 18 game in 2021. Looking at this matchup, you would expect Melbourne to win, but I don't think Hawthorn are completely out of this game. I think they can keep it close, but the issue with Hawthorn is playing the 4 quarters. So I'd potentially for this game be looking at Hawthorn at the plus in the first half. But I'll make a decision on that later in the week. Sydney take on Essendon. The Swans are a 30.5-point favorite on the back of 2 big wins to start the season against Melbourne and Collingwood. Essendon got through Hawthorn last week. Kind of waited until deep into the second half to kick away in that game, pretty much the last quarter. So I feel like the Swans are deserving to be, 5-goal favorites for this matchup, especially being played in Sydney. And the last time they met here, they're a 22.5-point favorite. So I feel like based on those factors, this line is pretty spot on. However, 8 of the past 11 between these two sides have been decided by 10 points or less. So they've historically been very, very close games. So that makes me a little bit hesitant to get too carried away with the Swans here, as Essendon have made it a bit of a habit of keeping these games really close. The Bombers have also covered 4 of the past 5. Even though the Swans have won 4 of the past 5. So Swans have been getting over the line, but Essendon have been keeping it close. And the line has blown out for this matchup. The total at 167.5. Feel like that's interesting. 3 of the last 4, as you can see, have gone over, and the totals come down from their last meeting at 167.5. The meeting at the SCG, though, the last 2 have both gone under. However, this is the lowest total of those, what will now be 3 meetings. So fairly small lean to the over, and I like the Swans to be winning this game, but not super keen on -30.5. The Western Bulldogs take on the Gold Coast Suns. The Bulldogs -8.5. Last time they met, the Bulldogs were a 10.5 point favorite. So gaps closed a little bit on the back of Gold Coast's form to start the season, beating Richmond, and then also beating the Adelaide Crows. Total at 159.5. So fairly similar to the recent meetings between these sides. The past 4 have gone over, so I'll be leaning towards the over here at this number, but however, we'll definitely be paying attention to what the weather is doing in Ballarat for this game. When they last played there, it was 158.5, so put up basically the same total for this matchup, and it was a high-scoring game with close to 200 points scored. So at this stage, depending weather, would lean towards the over. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is a game the Suns could be winning, even though the Bulldogs have a good record winning 9 of the past 11 against Suns. This is the best that Gold Coast has played in all their seasons so far. However, the Bulldogs are a team that I did like to be in contention this year. So kind of just monitoring this game. I haven't fully decided which way I'm going to go, but at this stage, leaning towards the over 159.5. Richmond take on Port Adelaide. Port -12.5, total 169.5. 5 of the past 6 between these sides have gone under, so the totals come right down from their last meeting at 178.5 down to 169.5. Definitely leaning towards Port Adelaide winning this game. The away team has covered 5 of the past 6 in this matchup, and Richmond has covered 4 of the past 6. And they really pretty much probably should have covered 5 of the past 6 with the 1 game missing by a very small margin. Last time they met, Port were 38.5 point favorites. That was in round 24 last season. And when they met in Melbourne, Port were a 1.5 point favorite. So moved up 11 points from there. Port won that game by 10, and I think they can win this game by a slightly bigger margin than that. At 169.5, no real lean either way on the total, but I do like Port Adelaide to be winning this game and covering. GWS or West Coast take on GWS. The Giants 42.5 point favorite. Total 177.5. You can see that line's moved up 10 points with the past 3 between these sides going over. This is likely going to be a high-scoring game. West Coast beat GWS early last season, round 2, 100 points to 81 over in Perth. So that'll give them some confidence coming into this game. The Giants were only a 3.5 point favorite there. With their form this season and towards the end or second half of last year, it's gone up to 42.5 for this game. That's a very, very big jump when they only met pretty much a year ago. Giants likely win this game very, very comfortably, but I wouldn't be backing them at the -42.5. I'm going to be monitoring what this total does because currently leaning towards the over for it, but I think it's just potentially just too high of a number to take. So I might be looking at some player props for that matchup, considering West Coast like to give up plenty of disposals to the opposition players. And there's a lot of players in the Giants lineup who definitely like to rack them up. So that's how I'll be leaning on this game. I'm going to be posting my bets on YouTube, so make sure you're subscribed to get those videos closer to when the games start. And I'll also be going through the stats and the factors that are contributing towards once I lock in my final bets for these games. So make sure you don't miss those. I'm going to be posting AFL betting videos all season long to help you make the best possible betting decisions. There's going to be more information coming in regard to player props as well. So keep an eye out for that.